Welcome to Unholy Inquiry, where each tale leads you deeper into a labyrinth of mystery, waiting to be uncovered. This time, join us as we delve into Hercule Poirot and murder on the Riviera line, a fan-crafted story that pays homage to the genius and sophistication of Agatha Christie's iconic detective, Hercule Poirot. We are thrilled to have you with us on this captivating journey. Share your thoughts, let us know where you're tuning in from, and if you spot any details we missed, your feedback is invaluable. Together, let's continue to shape even more thrilling enigmas. Chapter 1. The Locked Door Mystery. The rain drummed with an insistent rhythm against the stone facade of Ashwood Manor, a grand yet melancholic estate perched at the edge of the quaint English village of Penrose. Shadows danced across the walls of the dimly lit study, where the renowned Sir Reginald Stone lay motionless behind a locked door, his lifeless body slumped over the mahogany desk. The eerie silence was tangible, settling heavily, like a weight upon the heart of the house. It was a peaceful evening, yet the tranquility had been shattered, ripped apart by a terrible act. As the clock struck 8, Inspector James Barnaby, a broad-shouldered man with an unwavering demeanor, stood at the door of the study, reeling at the grim sight before him. The scene was perplexingly serene. The body was draped in the soft light of the oil lamps, surrounded by meticulously arranged volumes on the shelves, a scholar's sanctuary now sullied by an unspeakable act. "No sign of forced entry," he murmured, his brow furrowing as he jangled the key in frustration. But how? The key clinked against the doorknob as he gestured towards the waiting figures behind him. Among them was Mrs. Eleanor Stone, a striking woman with a proud chin and piercing eyes laden with an indiscernible power. Her gaze flickered momentarily from her husband's body to his cold, lifeless hand resting upon a weathered ledger, its pages yellowing, its contents still hidden from the world. "He wasn't alone in this room," she said, her voice steady, yet laced with a tense undertone. "Whoever did this had access, someone we know." Just then, the soft crunch of gravel announced the arrival of an adorned car, splattering mud in its wake. The door swung open, revealing none other than Hercule Poirot, his tiny stature magnified by the shadowy ambience as he stepped into the ambience, a swirl of wit and grace. He surveyed the scene, his intelligent gaze cataloguing every detail, the anxious expressions of the onlookers, the disarray of papers scattered across the desk, and the incongruity of a pristine study marred by violence. "Mon ami, there is a mystery here that demands to be unraveled," Poirot stated, his accent thick with a Belgian cadence, yet refined with sophistication. Inspector Barnaby nodded curtly in recognition. "Poirot, I presume? I had not expected you to arrive so swiftly," he replied, his unease palpable in the air. "Well, the nature of the tragedy hastened my steps," Poirot remarked, passing a keen glance at Eleanor Stone. "Madame, it is oft said that in grief the truth reveals itself. Would you be so kind as to share with us your whereabouts during this dark hour?" With a fragile breath, she replied, "I was in the library just down the hall, attending to some correspondence. Sir Reginald had requested solitude. I thought him deep in consideration of a matter. The strained yet cat-like clarity in her eyes made Poirot ponder deeper into her psyche. "Of course," Poirot continued smoothly, drawing out the essential threads of the mystery. "Solitude can breed many things: doubt, fear, or perhaps even a most nefarious intention." "Are you implying that I had a hand in this?" Eleanor challenged, her expression imperious. "Think again, Monsieur Poirot. This was not an accident or a spur of the moment. Sir Reginald was a man with many enemies. Enemies indeed, Poirot mused, leaning on his cane with an air of contemplative curiosity. I sense you know more of these particular enemies than you let on. Before an argument could escalate, the door creaked open at Inspector Barnaby's insistence, drawing Poirot's eye back towards the room. Look here, Poirot, he motioned, pointing to a small drawer, half open on the desk, its contents swimming in obscurity. There are rumors about Sir Reginald's dealings, business ventures that went afoul. As Poirot stepped cautiously into the room, the faint scent of cigar smoke lingered in the air, muddled with something sharper, more sinister. His eyes caught the ledger immediately, but it was the flickering candle next to it that drew him closer. Leaning towards it, Poirot caught a glimpse of a torn piece of parchment tucked carelessly beneath the table. "Inspector, allow me to remind you," he said, lifting the letter with delicate fingers. This may hold some significance." The piece of paper bore a hurried scrawl, primal and desperate. "If I am found, do not trust Eleanor." The ink had barely dried, suggesting a final warning from the late Sir Reginald himself. As Poirot held the scrap of evidence, it slid from his fingers, catching upon the desk before fluttering to the floor. "Do you see?" he demanded, turning sharply towards the others in the room. "This suggests not only treachery, but the highest of stakes." Eleanor's expression shifted. Her mask briefly fell away, exposed by suspicion and fright. "Sir Reginald had many dealings," she insisted, determination mingling with fear. "He was a man who rubbed the wrong shoulders, and perhaps those very shoulders sought to silence him," Poirot suggested, darting a sharp glance at Barnaby. "We must delve deeper into this leafy shroud of deceit." As his mind executed the deductions, the shadows around them deepened, closing in thickly against the nonchalant flicker of the waxen flames. The air hung heavy with the promise of revelations yet to unfold, weighty, tension fueling the night. Poirot stepped back, considering the interweaving fates of those before him. Was innocence simply cloaked in sophistication, or merely another guise for darkness? "Someone here knows the truth," he declared, fixing his gaze upon each suspect in turn. "Their silence shall not protect them for long." An empathetic chill slithered through the room as they pondered this grave assertion. And in that moment of frozen air, Poirot turned to Eleanor, who stood defiantly, pride, struggling against uncertainty. "We shall not rest until we find the keys to this locked door." And with the challenge in the air, a thunderous clap of lightning illuminated the dark room, casting a spotlight on the buried secrets of Ashwood Manor. The night rolled on with its cloak of rain and shadows, as Poirot stood ready to unveil the sinister truth hidden behind the locked door. And somewhere in that mansion, a spark of malevolence watched and waited, creeping closer. Chapter 2. A letter arrives too late. The rain poured down with renewed ferocity, tapping insistently against the window panes of Ashwood Manor, echoing the tension that simmered within. Hercule Poirot stood with purposeful calm, gazing at the lifeless form of Sir Reginald Stone, sprawled unceremoniously across his desk, while Inspector Barnaby inspected the fresh evidence they had uncovered moments before. Shadows seemed to stretch menacingly across the ornate woodwork, creating an unsettling ambiance that cloaked the room in mystery. As a gust of wind rattled the heavy oak windows, a figure shuffled into the study, James, the butler, whose wavering hands held a single pale envelope that carried an air of ominous urgency. His expression was grim, rigid, as the letter slipped from his unsteady grip. It was delivered just now, sir," he stammered, nodding toward Poirot as he stepped aside to reveal a darkened corner of the room. "I thought you might want to see it." Poirot, raising an eyebrow, took the letter gingerly, examining the neat handwriting that formed the recipient's name, Sir Reginald Stone. Intrigued, he turned the envelope over, noting the wax seal. "This may prove to be most illuminating, non?" he remarked, his voice a blend of curiosity and authority. He glanced toward Eleanor, whose gaze flickered between Poirot and the letter, her expression unreadable. "Please, no more secrets. You must read it," she interjected, her voice teetering on the edge of desperation, though her composure remained poised. Poirot nodded and carefully opened the letter. His eyes scanned the contents, absorbing every word, the weight of implication thickening the air. "My dear Reginald," he read aloud, "you are hereby informed that the provisions of our father's will have changed. Should anything happen to you, the inheritance shall pass to someone else entirely. The whereabouts of this person are known to me alone. Trust no one, for greed breeds betrayal." Gasps echoed in the room. Poirot paused, absorbing the gravity of the situation before continuing. "I shall reveal my identity and claim what is mine soon. Thus your time is of the essence, dear brother. May the shadows protect you, for they will soon darken over those you hold dear, should your enemies prevail." The letter slipped from Poirot's fingers, floating gently to the ground. "Remarkable," he murmured, though his brow furrowed deeply. "This sibling rivalry is plainly laying its cards upon the table. Yet what a cruel twist of fate that it arrives in such a turbulent hour." Inspector Barnaby cleared his throat, his voice rough with intrigue. "It appears your late friend had more to worry about than mere business partnerships. A rival sibling, perhaps? We must investigate this newfound heir. I trust you have more than just speculation about this change of fortune." "I do," Poirot affirmed, his brows narrowing. "The letter hints at a complex family dynamic, jealousy, hidden enmities. This brother may very well be a critical piece of the puzzle." He cast a quick glance at Eleanor. "And madame, it appears you knew nothing of this development." Eleanor's facade cracked slightly, her eyes darkening with the weight of secrets left unspoken. "I had no idea of any such brother," she faltered, her voice suddenly cold. "Reginald was a man of many secrets. If one of his siblings was indeed a threat, it's even more imperative to uncover who they are." "Indeed," Poirot replied, his mind racing as he processed the implications of uncertainty before them. There was something uneasy about Eleanor's tone that suggested more than simple ignorance. It was a subtle dance of deception, a hint of resentment lurking just below the surface. Poirot hastened to dismiss any doubt, focusing immediately on the next step. "We must speak with the staff. Each might play a role in this narrative. What of the housekeeper or the gardener? They could cast light on the family's history, or perhaps they carry burdens of their own." Eleanor nodded sharply, her resolve apparently bolstered by the sudden urgency of Poirot's strategies. "Agreed, but we cannot linger here while another storm brews. Each is a suspect now." As the rain continued to rage, Poirot and Barnaby moved through the manor, summoning each member of the household. Their first encounter was with Mrs. Hargrove, the housekeeper, a weary woman with graying hair pulled back tightly. She stood stiffly, hands clasped before her, eyes darting about the room. "Mrs. Hargrove, did you know of Sir Reginald's brother?" Poirot began, scrutinizing her nervous posture. The silence stretched, pregnant with tension, as she hesitated. "It was not my place to say, sir. Family matters are delicate," she managed, her facade cracking slightly. Poirot frowned, noting the sheen of perspiration glistening on her forehead. "And yet you seem burdened by a truth. Would it not be better to share it?" She shifted uneasily, taking a step back. Sir Reginald was not as well liked as he appeared. There were whispers, threats made in shadowed halls, and his brother. She hesitated. He was not welcome in this house. "Why?" Barnaby interjected, catching the glimmer of insight. "Because he was entitled to claim what Sir Reginald feared losing everything. It said they'd never forgive one another." She swallowed, her gaze dropping to the floor. "I can't—" "Very well," Poirot interjected kindly, sensing her fear. "Let us speak further when the moment is right. But beware, jealousy can be a poisonous fruit." After questioning Mrs. Hargrove, Poirot found the gardener, Francis, who shuffled in, dirt-stained and apprehensive. "You often find secrets hidden within a garden, Monsieur Poirot," he said cryptically as he stepped into the room, his eyes darting everywhere, a man keenly aware yet burdened by shadows of his own. "What do you mean, Francis?" Poirot pressed, drawing him further into the light. "Nothing much, sir," he rebuffed, though the tremor in his voice betrayed him. "But Sir Reginald always had a way of keeping things under wraps. Finances, perhaps even—" "What?" Poirot urged gently, sensing the man had more to offer. "The roses over yonder," he gestured anxiously. "They were planted for Lady Eleanor. But Sir Reginald, he often conversed with them as though they were people, and once I heard him mutter something about safeguarding our interests." "Safeguarding whose?" Poirot inquired, a distinct flicker of recognition igniting in his mind. Francis recoiled and quickly added, "I can't say. Please, not me. I've tried to forget." "Regardless, you may have just unearthed something monumental," Poirot murmured, his mind racing. "The idea of entangling alliances, confidential dealings in the dark. We must speak further. Each twist drags the next closer." Returning to the study, Poirot felt the mounting weight of despair, but also clarity. The many threads of Sir Reginald's life were interspaced with hidden motives and tangled alliances. Soon, they would weave together into a tapestry of truth. As the storm pelted against the walls of Ashwood Manor, a truth began to surface, yet it remained just beyond grasp. Something deeper lay hidden, a seed of revelation, waiting to emerge. Poirot's heart raced, painting vivid images of jealousy wrapped in betrayal, all breeding beneath a veil of civility. "Tomorrow the investigation escalates with great purpose," he proclaimed, determination etched in every feature. "We shall speak once more with each soul, and unearth the scattered puzzles of Reginald's life, for the shadows grow longer still." With that, he glanced aside, noticing Eleanor's tense, aware eyes, holding on to something more, a missed opportunity in the guise of innocence. The night wore on. Thunder rumbled overhead, the flickering candles casting long, wavering shadows across the walls of Ashwood Manor. But a sudden thought propelled Poirot into contemplative silence. In the stillness of the unfolding storm, the answers felt close enough to touch, and somewhere amidst the rain-soaked silence, another letter lay in wait, its ink still fresh, carrying words that might change everything. But for now, they lingered just out of reach, leaving Poirot yearning for the imminent dawn that would bring forth dreadful secrets entangled in greed and washed away by guilt. The chase was on, and time was of the essence. Chapter 3. Whispers in the Dark. The rain howled mercilessly against the windows, a cacophony that echoed within the very walls of Ashwood Manor. The eerie ambience of the house, steeped in dark wood and faded grandeur, was accentuated by the flickering candlelight, each flame quivering like a heart, racing with the thrill of secrets concealed. Hercule Poirot stood in the drawing-room, his gaze fixing steadily on Eleanor. Her expression, a blend of heartache and determination, betrayed a depth of turmoil beneath the surface. "Madame," Poirot began, his voice slicing through the heavy air, "the shadows that envelop this house whisper of dangers that lie beyond just the grave." He paused, searching for her eyes, seeking the truth, masked by her graceful demeanor. "What would you have me find, should the past come knocking upon your door?" Before she could respond, an abrupt noise from the hallway broke their moment, an anxious murmur, followed by the unmistakable sharp tones of James, the butler. "No, I will not," he insisted, and then a sharper voice interjected, "You cannot threaten me. You know the consequences of your silence." Poirot's keen ears sharpened. In that instant, without a word exchanged, he turned to Eleanor, his brows raised in silent inquiry. Without waiting for further deliberation, he walked briskly towards the doorway, Eleanor trailing closely behind. The scene unfolding in the hall could not have been timelier. There stood James, visibly agitated, facing Barnaby, who perched against the oak frame with arms crossed. A look of incredulity splayed across his face. "And just what were you planning to do, James?" "Keep this from us?" Barnaby challenged, his voice dropping lower, simmering with authority. Poirot stepped forward, seamlessly inserting himself into the fray. "Gentlemen, may I interrupt this impromptu play and inquire the nature of the discussion?" James blinked rapidly, flustered. "Sir, it's not important, just a misunderstanding. Not important," Poirot redirected, his meticulous gaze slicing through the facade. "A misunderstanding over what? Secrets that could implicate one of you in a most heinous act, perhaps?" He stared pointedly at James, who shifted uncomfortably under scrutiny. "I implore you, monsieur, even amidst such turmoil, do not let your fears cloud your judgment," James faltered. "Fears, you say?" Poirot leaned closer, his voice imbued with the gravity of his purpose. "What are these fears harboring within you? Share them now, or risk carrying their burden for all eternity." Barnaby straightened, clearly intrigued, his curious eyes darting between Poirot and the butler. He sensed the shifting tides of tension, and it didn't escape him that James now appeared to be wrestling with some profound inner conflict. But before James could divulge his truth, another figure emerged from the shadows. Francis, the gardener. His presence was unmistakably somber, speckled dirt, making him appear like a relic, unearthed from the earth itself. I heard." His voice trembled, unnerved, the words barely escaping. "I heard that there are darker matters not yet spoken." "Ah, Francis," Poirot addressed him with a knowing smile. "What is this darkness you carry?" But before Francis could elucidate, Eleanor, clearly put on edge by the rising crescendo in her household, interjected, "We cannot stand here debating fears while questions lie silent. I demand answers, as does Sir Reginald's legacy." Each word was pronounced with an intensity that made even James flinch. "Very well, madame," Poirot replied, seeing the storm brewing within her. "Let us not bathe in the shadows any longer. Sooner or later, they shall claw their way to light." "James, you mentioned a threat. To whom was it directed?" "All of us." James turned red, his voice rising. Sir Reginald was a tyrant, if you will. He kept many under his heel. I did what was asked. I thought I would protect myself. Barnaby threw his hands up, incredulously. Protect yourself from whom, James? From Reginald or someone else? A brother, perhaps? This is the truth we need. With the possibility of deeper threats surfacing, Poirot took a deep breath, steadying his thoughts and narrowing his focus. We must hone in on the nature of these threats, James. Who loomed large enough to incite such fear? I cannot speak of it. I swore an oath, James protested, his eyes darting to Eleanor, whose features had tightened in apprehension. I fear, for my life if I speak, it could be my ruin. And yet by remaining silent, you may find that ruin becomes inevitable, Poirot pressed, sensing that they were on the brink of uncovering something substantial. Eleanor stepped closer, visibly agitated. Must we let fear govern us? Speak, James. Who do you fear above all else? James hesitated, the internal struggle surfacing on his face. The pull between loyalty and self-preservation became palpable. There are those within our circle who envy our very existence, who seek revenge from the darkness. Reginald's brother is not the only one with a stake in his fortune. Indeed, Poirot probed, determination lining his voice. And what do you know of the dealings between Reginald and anyone else? Do not let the shadows keep your tongue hitched. Just then, amidst the charged air of the encounter, a chill descended, and the flickering candles shivered, giving birth to disquieting shadows that danced along the walls. An unexpected sound, a soft rustle, arose from the parlor just beyond, drawing every eye. Eleanor gasped, and Poirot, his finely tuned instincts honed, moved toward the noise. With a swift motion, he pushed open the door to reveal a crumpled letter on the carpet, far too familiar in its intent. Curious, he said dryly. It appears our whispers have caught the attention of another, with a vested interest. The ink is still wet, he noted, bending low to examine it more closely. The smell of the paper, mingling with the damp air. Whatever this was meant to conceal, he concluded, straightening himself with a gleam of intensity in his gaze, is now exposed for all to see. Gather closer, for I fear the shadows have much more to say. As the others gathered around, Poirot held the crumpled letter between two fingers, the immediacy of excitement crackling around them. Contained within these smudged marks may lie the answers we seek. Shall we find out what the shadows have written, or will we allow them to slip back into obscurity? With their breaths collectively held, the group leaned in, the rain tapping lightly against the window as a sense of urgent anticipation gripped Ashwood Manor's inhabitants. What ramifications lay within this newfound clue, poised precariously on the precipice of revelation? Thus, the storm raged on outside, as the storm within continued to gather momentum. A storm that would dismantle all facades and reveal hidden motives hidden in the dark. Time was running out, and Poirot knew truth, like the rain, always finds a way to seep through the cracks. Chapter 4. The Will That Was Never Signed. The wind howled through the ancient trees surrounding Ashwood Manor, branches clawing at the sky like skeletal fingers, mirroring the turmoil brewing within its walls. Hercule Poirot stood in the dimly lit study, the flickering light casting elongated shadows that danced across the gloom. The remnants of the earlier storm still clung to the air, a heavy mist seeping through the cracks of the old brick, creating an atmosphere thick with tension and expectation. The crumpled letter found hours earlier lay on a mahogany table, illuminating the darkness with the faintest hint of promise. With a meticulous precision only Poirot could muster, he picked up the letter once more, unfolding its damp edges. The script was anxious, splattered with irregular ink blots. His mind swirled with possibilities, each word a thread, tugging at a larger tapestry of mystery. "Gentlemen," he said, casting a glance at Barnaby and James, who stood frozen in the doorway. "We stand at the precipice of revelation. This letter," he paused dramatically, "detective work has revealed that it is no mere correspondence, but speaks of the final intentions of Sir Reginald." James shifted uneasily, the paleness of his face nearly ghostly under the candlelight. "What do you mean, Monsieur Poirot? Could it possibly disclose his last will?" His voice trembled with a mix of dread and anticipation. Indeed, Reginald was in the process of drafting a new will when he met his untimely demise, Poirot affirmed, a sudden intensity flaring in his dark eyes. "It is imperative we find this document. What a legacy it would leave, and who stands to gain from its disappearance?" Eleanor, who had been silent until now, suddenly stepped forward, her voice seething with a mixture of urgency and fear. "Of course, my brother may have intended to alter his bequests. Are there not numerous relatives waiting for his death to claim portions of his estate?" "Quite so, madame," Poirot replied, allowing himself just the faintest hint of a smile. He loved the way Eleanor's sharp intellect shone through, especially at moments like these. What, then, would their motives be for wishing him harm? Before Eleanor could answer, a rustling outside the door caught their attention. It was Francis, the gardener, his face a map of anxiety and trepidation. "I overheard bits of conversation last week," he stammered, glancing nervously at the floor. "I thought it best to keep mum, but—" He hesitated. There was talk among the family. Old grievances, an inheritance, perhaps. I even heard mention of a sister, someone cut out of prior arrangements. A sister? Poirot's brow furrowed as he mulled that over. Could this be another avenue to pursue? "What do you know of this relative? Who is she?" Francis swallowed hard, the words crawling slowly from his lips. "Her name is Lila. She married a merchant overseas. Rumor has it that she has returned to reclaim her birthright, and not just in spirit. Ah, a heiress seeking reparation for past slights," Poirot mused, a spark of excitement tracing his thoughts. "But one must ponder. What lengths might she go to secure her rightful place?" Perhaps even more troubling is the fact that Reginald passed mere days before he intended to meet her, Barnaby interjected, his voice rising. The gravity of the moment sank in, the shifting faces around the room reflecting dawning realization. Could this all be a coincidence, or something far more sinister? Suddenly, a rumble of thunder echoed outside, accentuating the sudden silence that enveloped them. Poirot felt an electric pull in the atmosphere as he glanced once more at the letter on the table, the only solid clue in their midst. "We must act with haste, mes amis. The will is fundamental. Without it, all we possess are shadows of suspicion." "Where shall we begin?" Eleanor asked, her eyes wide with anticipation, perhaps even a hint of fear. "First," Poirot said, his voice steady and assured, "we return to the premises where Sir Reginald kept his personal effects, his study. Perhaps we miss something that might lead us to his intentions. This is paramount." But even as they turned to leave, the atmosphere crackled with an unspoken tension. Poirot felt it in the very marrow of his bones. Each of the suspects was laden with heavy motives, each with the capacity for deceit and treachery. The secrets buried deeper within Ashwood Manor clung to the walls like ivy, seeking the light. They made their way down the dimly lit hall, the floorboards groaning beneath their weight, as though warning them of the impending truths ready to unfurl. Upon entering Reginald's study, the air thickened with a peculiar heaviness, the silence palpable. The room was a cauldron of mementos, a desk strewn with papers bearing Reginald's scrawl, bookcases filled with leather-bound tomes filled with knowledge and secrets, and merely an arm's reach away, a dusty safe set into the wall, towering and foreboding. Poirot approached the desk, sifting through the myriad of documents strewn across its surface. His fingers brushed against a half-finished letter, its contents listing various legacies of family heirlooms, yet the name of the intended benefactor remained glaringly missing. Thoughts, yet uncompleted, he murmured. "Is there more you can glean?" Barnaby asked, leaning closer, intrigue sparkling in his eyes. Poirot turned, a sudden realization dawning on him. "No, mon ami, yet there remains the safe," he stated, motioning toward the metal fortress embedded in the wall. Everyone collectively drew a breath, a tension thick enough to cut with a knife. Poirot, kneeling beside it, swiveled the dial, his mind racing, calculating combinations as the others held their breath in anticipation. "It is here. I feel it. If there is a will, it may well be locked away in this chamber of secrets." But just then, a chilling clang echoed through the room, resonating through the corridors of Ashwood Manor. Poirot froze, the puzzle unraveling in sudden clarity, juxtaposed with the clang, suggesting a presence looming in the doorway, the shadows of a silhouette emerging. "Ah, but Monsieur Poirot," a smooth voice flowed like silk through the tense air. "What have we here? A treasure hunt? Or merely desperate whispers of hidden legacies waiting to be discovered?" Every gaze turned sharply to face the intruder. Lila, the sister they thought was merely a rumor, stood there, her presence commanding yet laced with an aura of danger. The pieces of the puzzle lifted momentarily but shifted ominously, establishing one undeniable truth. The mystery deepened, and with every layer peeled back, the stakes rose exponentially. Who among them might wish to protect or destroy the legacy of Sir Reginald? And as Poirot's mind raced to assess her next move and decode her presence, he felt the weight of the revelation poised directly above him, like the storm gathering forces outside, ready to unleash further chaos. One thing was certain: Ashwood Manor still cradled its haunting secrets, and the truth would reveal itself, crashing down like the relentless rain upon the roof above. Time was running out, and Poirot knew another revelation lay close, whispering through the halls like the wild wind, eager to be heard once more. Chapter 5. A Vanishing Act. Rain lashed against the leaded windows of Ashwood Manor, turning the night into a theatrical display of shadows and glistening droplets. A low rumble of thunder echoed through the vaulted halls as Hercule Poirot sat in the parlor, a concentration furrowed deep across his brow. The remnants of their recent discovery, the crumpled letter, and the revelation of Sir Reginald's intended will, created an atmosphere so charged that even the flickering candle flames seemed to lean in closer, eager for clarity that hung just out of reach. "Sacre bleu!" Poirot exclaimed suddenly, slamming his hand on the polished mahogany table, sending a tremor through the delicate teacups resting on its surface. "Monsieur Barnaby, do you recall any mention of correspondence between Sir Reginald and this sister?" His eyes sparkled with the thrill of the chase, intent on connecting every available dot in the intricate tapestry of this case. "None, I am afraid," Barnaby replied, his voice strained with worry as the shadows of their seemingly insignificant discoveries loomed larger. I presumed she had cut ties long ago. A clinking sound interrupted their discussion, and Poirot turned sharply toward the door. Eleanor, having observed the ensuing debate, clenched her jaw, a storm raging within her cerulean eyes. "The night is unkind, but it holds secrets, does it not?" she mused, as if speaking to herself. "Where does the mystery end and reality begin? And what of Lila?" Just as Poirot opened his mouth to respond, a soft but decisive thump echoed from somewhere deep within the manor, beyond the threshold of the study. The group fell silent, straining their ears, tension seeping into the very bones of the wood around them. Curious glances were exchanged, and the curious entangled minds of the assembled party gathered to the fore, intertwining their fears with interest as they pondered the unfolding events. "Monsieur Poirot, it may be prudent to investigate," Barnaby urged, his brow glistening with an apprehensive sheen. "Indeed," Poirot affirmed, vanishing into his detective resolve. "We must act swiftly. The shadows stir once again. They seek to rewrite the tale." They crossed the threshold into the adjoining corridor, moving swiftly but quietly as the air thickened with unsaid words and lingering dread. Each step fell softly upon the aged boards, their collective breath bated as they approached a looming doorway that led to the dim light of the dining room. An indecipherable weight hung in the air as they entered. The sight that greeted them shattered the silence like glass shattering on the stone floor. Lila was draped over the table, still as marble, with a shockingly vibrant bouquet of calla lilies adorning her head, the only color in an otherwise monochrome scene. A note rested on her chest, an innocuous detail that brought all conversation to an abrupt halt. "Mon Dieu," Poirot muttered, moving forward to inspect the scene, his senses heightened, absorbing each element of the tableau laid before him. "Eleanor, what do you make of this?" Her features contouring with alarm, she shook her head. I cannot fathom it. She was just standing before us, her presence unmissable. How could she vanish?" "There is a much darker intent at play," Poirot interjected as he continued his examination. "Lila, much like many in this house, had aims, did she not? A claim to the estate, perhaps? This disappearance, final perhaps, seems to signify more than a mere act of fate." As he reached the table, Poirot felt the pulse of uncertainty thumping in his chest. He picked up the note with delicate precision, noticing the quick, almost careless scrawl that punctuated the paper. "Listen to me, mes amis," he breathed, reading aloud. "To those seeking truths, know they are found in the past, often overlooked. What was not signed cannot be sealed. The echoes of our history are far from silent." "What could she mean?" Barnaby asked, unease skittering through his voice. "If the truth lies in the past, then indeed we must uncover the past that grayed here within these walls," Poirot concluded earnestly, cautious not to allege too much too quickly. "And return to the safe. This is where we shall unveil Lila's intentions." Francis, still lingering like a spectre at the threshold, stepped further into the room, dread merging with concern etched across his face. But how could she have vanished? One moment in our midst, the next gone like vapor in the morning sun. The combination of his words and Lila's absence cast a shroud of ominous foreboding over the gathered group. They exchanged glances filled with an equal measure of fear and desperation, the dread of deceit rippling through their veins. What dark path had Lila traversed, and what secret chambers of grief lay locked behind the stone of Ashwood Manor's impeccable facade. "Quickly now, we must return to the study," Poirot directed with new urgency. "There is more to find, perhaps leading us to our sister, or truth's cruel trick." As they took swift strides down the corridor, the air around them crackled in a symphony of revelation and urgency, propelled by their shared pursuit of clarity. They rounded the corner only to be met with an astonishing spectacle. Before them, the heavy door to Reginald's study stood ajar, an unusual occurrence that sent needles of instinct through Poirot's spine. "What is it?" Barnaby implored, sensing Poirot's stillness. "Eleanor, I must know your feelings. What do you sense?" Poirot pressed, demanding the very essence of her being for the answer. She stepped forward, her intuition in perfect rhythm with Poirot's deductive nature. "It feels as though something waits within," she replied carefully. "Patience is not the enemy here." Gripping the door's handle with determined resolve, Poirot pushed it open entirely, revealing a scene bathed in a spectral twilight, illuminated only by the amber lights of flickering candles scattered across the desk. Papers lay scattered, but among them, one document stood out, bright against the darkness, perfectly framed, a newly signed will, bold strokes of ink against the parchment, entwined with the aroma of betrayal. "Voila! Here is the truth, yet untethered," Poirot announced, an electrifying thrill of revelation coursing through him. "With one signature, we may find the missing puzzle piece to this labyrinthine narrative that is Ashwood Manor." A steely resolve settled in his gaze as he stepped further into the room. Horror mixed with the promise of discovery reflected on his companions' faces. As he leaned closer, irrevocable clarity began settling in. But then he spotted something else, a small envelope tucked into the corner, with a familiar name scrawled upon it, Lila. The game, in earnest, had just begun, the ultimate end yet to be discovered. As the winds outside howled louder, a hidden tableau of motives churned in the dark corners of Ashwood Manor. In a world of shadows, orchestrated by betrayal and deception, the lurking question remained. Was Lila still alive, or had her vanishing act consumed her entirely? In the art of deduction, Poirot knew one thing for certain. One remaining clue held the potential to shatter the lies woven through time and reveal the truth behind the thunderous night that seemed intent on keeping its secrets. The floorboards creaked under Hercule Poirot's weight, a disquieting symphony accompanying the downpour that battered Ashwood Manor's facade. The flickering candles cast long shadows across the scattered documents scattered across the desk, a haunting dance of light and darkness. Every breath felt charged, each heartbeat intensified by the weight of their discoveries. "Mon Dieu," he murmured, his sharp gaze lingering on the envelope bearing Lila's name. The revelation mingled with the pulsing anxiety in the room, electrifying the air around him. With the softest touch, he retrieved the envelope, noting its staggered edges, a sign it may have been hastily tucked away. The uncertain silence enveloped the group, the room holding its breath as Poirot carefully slid the envelope open. Inside, a folded piece of paper awaited, the corners meticulously crisp as though preserving an untold secret. "Read it," Barnaby urged, his voice a whisper edged with urgency. Poirot unfolded the paper, absorbing the scrawl, each letter like a shard of glass, reflecting the moonlight, hidden beyond the storm clouds above. "My dearest Reginald," he began, voice steady yet laced with tension. As he read on, he felt the room closing in. Words of entreaty, but underlying intensity, enveloped every line. Our bond was ruptured by the weight of our legacies, he intoned, pausing briefly to glance at the faces of his companions. But love need not perish beneath the weight of riches. Meet me where our fateful decisions began. Secrets must be unraveled. The implications hung in the air like the faint scent of impending rain, as piercing and chilling as the wind howling outside. Poirot's mind raced, his intuition thrumming with possibilities. "What a tangled web they spun, no?" he remarked, looking to Eleanor, who stepped closer, her azure eyes wide with understanding and concern. "What does this mean, Poirot? Where could she be?" she demanded, her fingers curling with pent-up anxiety. He paced the floor, each step deliberate as he connected dots like a seasoned artist examining his canvas. "It reveals a rendezvous, perhaps, a secret lair within this very estate. This is a map to unseen corners where spirits linger." "Or perhaps it's a trap," Barnaby offered, though the air of trepidation did nothing to thwart Poirot's focus. "Non, non, my friend, listen carefully," Poirot countered, aligning the elements of the convoluted puzzle in his brilliant mind. "There is a resonance here, one that beckons us deeper into this entwined history. This reference to where our fateful decisions began, it may speak of the very foundation of Ashwood Manor." Suddenly, a thought struck him like lightning. The study. Sir Reginald had designed it not merely for dreadful formalities of estate planning, but to house something more, something important, perhaps even forbidden. Before another word could be exchanged, Poirot kneeled, scrutinizing the floor beneath the desk. Barnaby and Eleanor exchanged glances, their uncertainty reflected in their furrowed brows as Poirot's deft fingers probed the edges of the wooden boards. "The weight of secrets often breaks the very foundation they stand upon," he murmured, unearthing fragments of forgotten history concealed beneath the creaking planks. With nimble determination, he located a seam that appeared to resist the pressures of time, a hint of a concealed latch crying for liberation. The soft timber yielded to his skills, revealing a darkened compartment beneath the floorboards. Tension in the air thickened as he pried it fully open, exposing the shadows that danced within. "Voila!" he exclaimed, his voice a mixture of triumph and apprehension. Within lay a cache of documents, their corners yellowed with age, yet alive with urgencies long past. Barnaby and Eleanor gathered closer, eager to witness the unfolding of fate. Poirot drew the items out carefully, a ledger, the entries scarcely legible, yet palpably charged with intimate messages, and a series of letters, all penned in a fine script that belonged to Sir Reginald. He felt a rush of adrenaline as he began to delve through the correspondence, skimming through the delicate words that spoke of love affairs and secrets intertwined deeply with the legacy of Ashwood Manor. Reginald, and who was this? He asked aloud, spotting the name, Marianne, ringing with an air of intimacy that set the group on edge. Each letter revealed clandestine meetings, financial entanglements, and a vendetta so fierce it danced along the edge of violence. "What does it mean, Poirot? Is this the relationship that defined him?" Eleanor pressed, her face pale, as she grasped the implications of the discovery. "The pieces align like a carefully orchestrated symphony," Poirot replied, his thoughts crystallizing. Reginald's choices resonated through these very walls. Love, hate, guilt, a cocktail potent enough to drive one to extremes. As he delved deeper, one letter captured his attentiveness, conveying a profound urgency he couldn't ignore. "If our ambitions collide, our destinies shall be sealed in darkness. Beware the one who knows of the past, for they hold the key to our destruction. Cold dread lapped at the edges of Poirot's consciousness, his eyes narrowing. "Who is the one?" he whispered. There was a forbidding weight behind those words that sent chills up his spine, a connection to Lila that spun deeper into the intricate web laid over years. His heart quickened as logic sharpened. Could this reference suggest not merely an intruder, but someone among us? Perhaps Barnaby, a trusted advisor cloaked in ill intentions, or even Francis, whose loyalty carries a price. Poirot's voice took a gravitas that weighed heavily upon them all. Every look exchanged between the assembled group spoke of fright, apprehension coloring their expressions. "We must tread carefully," Eleanor warned, her eyes darting between the men. "Is it wise to draw such conclusions without evidence?" Poirot's gaze fixed on her, the intensity of his own contemplation evident. "The truth, mademoiselle, unwinds through shadows. We shall not be ensnared by fear. There are still many questions. Who knew of Lila's intentions? Who felt her return was a threat?" Just then, a deeper thud resonated through the walls of the manor, a palpable echo that drew all their attentions, an unsettling harmony of footfalls beneath the floor, tapping against the very foundation that housed tomes of secrets. Poirot rose, intuition flaring. Could this be the key to unveiling it all? "Fate moves its pawns," he murmured. "We are not alone." They exchanged looks, hearts pounding, as the thread unraveling the darkness around them thinned. With the storm outside howling, the hunt for the elusive and multifaceted truth began anew, each pulse of the manor's heart reminding them that Ashwood still held its breath, waiting for the moment the past and present would collide with staggering force. In that lingering moment, Poirot felt vulnerability intertwined with purpose, each hidden life within these walls whispering through the shadows. What had they unearthed? Nerves gripped and minds focused, they had unlocked a door that surely led them closer yet, with the promise of peril licking at their heels. Determined to piece it together, to face whatever lurked behind the secrets of the manor, Poirot steeled himself. The confluence of time awaited them, and a rush of inevitable revelation beckoned just beyond the threshold of the unknown. As he stepped toward the darkness beyond, the winds outside howled fiercer still, a storm neither of weather nor of mere mortal ambition, but of fates intertwined in a tapestry whose threads were yet to be fully revealed. Would they uncover the truth hidden beneath the floorboards before it swallowed them whole? The race began anew. Chapter 7, A Shadowy Past. A sudden thunderclap shattered the stillness inside Ashwood Manor, as Hercule Poirot, still reeling from the unearthing of the hidden correspondence beneath the floorboards, felt the very walls vibrate with the murmur of long-buried secrets. "Courage, mes amis," he said, the words barely escaping his lips as he swiftly gathered the letters in his grasp. The letters promised connections to something sinister, a hidden history that had an undeniable weight upon the present. "Mon Dieu, we have merely scratched the surface." Poirot's eyes sharpened with urgency, glancing at Eleanor and Barnaby, both waiting for him to make sense of the chaos. "We must seek further truth. This house, its history, has woven its sordid tapestry long before any of us arrived. What could have transpired here to keep Lila submerged in its depths?" From behind the desk, Barnaby stepped closer, a grimace marking his features. "But what indeed could we possibly uncover that the storm hasn't yet spat out? Past traumas can hardly come with neat answers." Eleanor, fighting against the anguish evident in her azure eyes, shook her head. "Do you think Lila was involved in all this?" Her voice had taken on an edge, reflecting not only her concern, but a depth of understanding that perhaps she too felt the pull of those whispers that seemed to linger in the room. Poirot stepped forward, a sense of determination sharpening within him, as if he had a compass directing him through the storm. What more lies dormant, he mused, wondering how to weave all that he had gathered into a coherent story. We must explore the manor further, and there must be others, voices from the past whose echoes cannot be ignored. In that moment, a chilling gust of wind rattled the windows, and Poirot knew that Ashwood was reluctant to release its grip on its hidden truths. The letter spoke of a meeting, a discovery of decisions made long ago. Poirot's fingers danced over the letters, like a maestro sensing the subtle nuances of a symphony, his mind churning through motivations. And, aha, there exists a photograph. He moved swiftly towards the clustered papers on the desk, his mind racing. Yes, there was mention in one of these letters, a gathering, a photograph that captured spirits long departed, but spirits whose significance transcended even death. "What photograph?" Barnaby asked, a spark igniting in his eyes as hope mingled with skepticism. "Uneasy alliances of the past," Poirot announced, like threads spun from the same loom. He rifled through the documents, each one falling reluctantly from his fingers, until finally he uncovered a brittle envelope, slightly yellowed but untouched. With deliberate care, he opened the envelope, revealing a photograph, its sepia hues casting a warm glow against the ominous surroundings of Ashwood's dim lighting. As he held it up to the flickering candlelight, Poirot's brows knitted together with intense scrutiny. Beneath the flickers danced the image of 5 figures, elegantly composed, smiles frozen in time. A gathering from what must have been a sunlit afternoon among the vibrant gardens of the estate. But as Poirot turned the photograph, a chill ran through him. The year marked on the reverse, 1928, echoed with a foreboding sense of connection. "Reginald was one of them, mon ami," Poirot noted, pointing out the gentleman, clad in a fine grey suit. "But look." He guided their eyes towards an unfamiliar face. "Who is this?" An unrecognized figure, standing quietly to the side, shrouded in shadow, but beckoning curiosity. Eleanor leaned in closer, her breath hitching as she absorbed the scene. "It's hard to believe we've never seen this before. Lila must have known these people. Was this gathering significant? What event ensued?" Poirot's mind raced, connecting dots of despair. "We need to find the answer to this question. An unearthed alliance, or perhaps a betrayal. The reason for Lila's disappearance could rest within this collective, gathered under the sun, but bound beneath shadows. And why would this photograph be hidden unless it bore witness to dark intentions?" Barnaby's voice grew gravely serious. "One of them could very well have been involved in foul play. Do we even know who the others are?" Eleanor's gaze grew intense, her complexion pale beneath the weight of implication. If Lila learned of alliance or betrayal, could someone, one of these faces, be threatening enough to risk her life? Indeed, Poirot mused, his mind weaving the intricate nuances of a history still fresh in every corner of the manor. Perhaps evidence tied to this photograph is nearby. We must seek those who knew how to navigate the tides of Ashwood's past. The surviving friends of Reginald's circle might still linger. But then the calm of their moment shattered as the echoing thud of footfalls returned, shakes of timber resonating deep. an insistent message that they weren't as alone as they presumed. Poirot's eyes darted toward the door. "It seems we are summoned," he murmured, adrenaline pumping through him. Fate has opened yet another door, but to whom does it lead? "Perhaps it could be our chance to get more answers," Eleanor suggested, her earlier trepidation faltering under newfound determination. "It could be one of the villagers who knows this history." "An elegant notion," Poirot agreed, feeling the thrill of pursuit surge within him. "One last piece of the puzzle awaits us, and I suspect it is hidden in plain sight." As they moved cautiously toward the source of the sound, the air thickened with foreboding, each creak of the floor beneath them sounding like a whisper of hidden lives. Poirot steeled himself for another revelation. The storm outside now a wild crescendo that echoed the clamoring for truth within. Each step brought with it the weight of lives intertwined, a cascade of consequences from decisions made under the watchful gaze of history. And then, as they reached the heavy wooden door leading into the corridor, it swung abruptly open, revealing a figure, a man, cloaked in darkness, but unmistakable in his urgency. "Poirot," the figure called urgently, "you must come quickly. It is about Leila." The unfinished sentence spoke volumes, its echo entwining with the thunder and the pall of uncertainty that hung tightly in the air. Poirot stepped through the threshold, hearts racing, the promise of revelation hanging tantalizingly close. Then he saw it. The storm was but a shadow over what secrets a shadowy past still held, ever ready to reveal its long-guarded truth. A new chapter of discovery awaited. Chapter 8. The Laughing Stranger. A crack of thunder split the night, reverberating through the air with a force that sent a shiver down Poirot's spine. Rain lashed against the windows of Ashwood Manor, strumming an eager rhythm that mimicked the frantic pounding of his heart. He stood with Eleanor and Barnaby in the flickering candlelight, their eyes drawn to the door that just a moment ago had swung open to admit a figure, a man, cloaked in the shadows of the storm. "Come quickly, Poirot," the man urged, his voice a low, urgent whisper. "I have news that may concern Leila." Poirot stepped forward, his mind awash in myriad possibilities. In the dim light, he caught a fleeting glimpse of the man's features, sharp, angular, with a hint of mischief sparkling in his eyes. There was something about him that felt untrustworthy, yet undeniably intriguing. "Who are you, mon ami?" Poirot asked, his gaze piercing. "I am Conrad Haynes," the stranger introduced himself. "I was a friend of Sir Reginald's. It seems the winds of fate have brought me back to this village just as the past starts to unravel." His lips curled into a bemused smile, at odds with the gravity of his words. "A traveler returns," Barnaby remarked dryly, assessing the man with a careful squint. "And yet, something in your demeanor suggests you are anything but a mere visitor. What brings you here, Mr. Haynes?" The smile widened, almost disarmingly, as Haynes leaned against the door frame. "Ah, Barnaby, I see my reputation as a storyteller precedes me. I have tales to share, tales of truth veiled in mirth. But first, come, let us talk by the fire." He gestured with a flourish, inviting them toward the flickering hearth in the main room. With little choice but to follow, Poirot led the way, his mind a whirl of suspicion and intrigue. He couldn't disregard the possibility of Haynes bearing vital information regarding Leila or ties to the enigmatic photograph that now seemed to breathe with the weight of secrets. But the man's playful demeanor was a cautious signal, one that raised the hairs on the back of Poirot's neck. As they settled into plush armchairs, the crackling fire danced shadows across the room, creating an atmosphere of both intimacy and foreboding. "Now, Mr. Haynes," Poirot said, maintaining his polished composure, "you claim to have known Sir Reginald. What do you know of his affairs? What significance do you attach to Lila?" "A curious inquiry, Poirot. Lila, with her charming laughter. A ghost of the past she is," Haynes said, his tone shifting from playful to serious. "Reginald was complicated. His circle, while bright, drew darkened shadows close. There were whispers, secrets shared only in the safest of drinks." "Whispers?" Eleanor interjected, leaning forward. "What sort of whispers?" "Whispers of affairs, betrayals, and alliances formed in the heat of youthful anticipation," he replied, his eyes glittering with the thrill of recollection. "There were those who adored him and those who loathed him. Imagine, if you will, a game played at twilight, masks hiding the truth behind smiles. As you said, beneath the sun, darkness tinged their laughter." Poirot's mind raced. Did Lila's laughter accompany this game, or was she merely a spectator? The laughter in Haynes's voice faded as he looked down, a mix of reverence and sadness cloaking his expression. She was both, a muse and a victim in a sense. "But let me not spiral unnecessarily. You wanted to know of my return, no? It isn't mere coincidence." "And yet it proves nothing," Barnaby replied brusquely, crossing his arms. "What knowledge do you have that we do not?" Haynes straightened and leaned toward them, eyes sparkling. "I sought to return to Ashwood to find something. A ledger, a record of choices made." He hesitated just long enough to impose suspense. "It speaks of debts owed and promises broken. It names those who might well have orchestrated Lila's disappearance." Poirot's heart quickened, and he scrutinized Haynes's appearance with renewed intensity. "Where is this ledger? Is it in this manor?" "No, unfortunately," Haynes said, his voice laced with remorse. "It is in the old tavern in the village, the one where the light flickers enigmatic all night long. I saw a face, lurking in the shadows. Who knows more than he lets on?" "What face?" Poirot leaned closer, urgency igniting his senses. "Mason, the barkeep. They say he loves to drink as much as he loves to listen," Haynes replied, smirking in a manner that suggested he was toying with a deeper mystery. Barnaby interjected, "And why should we trust you? You speak in riddles while making mockery of our plight." "Ah, Barnaby, distrust is the crux of healthy inquiry," Haynes quipped lightly. "But know this, I stand firm against dark ambitions, for life is too short to harbor ill will or concealments." His grin waned, leaving a shadow of sincerity. "But my past entwines with this manor and those who dwell within, and now it echoes through the memory of Lila." "Very well then," Poirot said, catching the flicker of truth amidst the humor. "We might need your eyes and wit to delve deeper into these murky waters." As the conversation continued, Haynes seethed with tales of yore, yet a twinge of doubt settled within Poirot's mind. The man was not revealing everything. Shadows lingered. He was holding something back. Yet what? As their discussion dripped with urgency, thunder roiled overhead, cradling their chilling secrets like a heavy blanket. Suddenly, a thought pierced through Poirot's fog of contemplation. "You referred to debts earlier. Were there any concerning Sir Reginald? Perhaps payments made on behalf of someone we now suspect?" Haynes looked momentarily stunned before his laughter erupted, reverberating ominously against the walls. "Ah, my dear Poirot, debts are as mercurial as smoke under candlelight. Some vanish, while others lingered dangerously close. Poirot stood abruptly, his mind racing with connections. "You jest, but I sense you know something. Lila was woven within those debts, was she not?" The laughter faded as Haynes met Poirot's gaze, now solemn and clouded. "Indeed, she was, but perhaps it is time to untwine secrets whole. A confrontation at last awaits in the tavern, and one that may lead us closer to the truth behind Lila's shroud." With a sudden chill coursing through him, Poirot turned sharply toward Barnaby and Eleanor. "We must act before darkness descends upon us, lest we be found trapped in a game laden with peril." As the wind howled outside, the fire flickered as though igniting Poirot's resolve. The laughter of the stranger, that mocking dance of danger, loomed above the yearning truth of Lila's absence. Yet in the depths of that laughter, one question remained tantalizingly unanswered. Would they reveal the architect of deceit before the mystery consumed them whole? Just as the storm raged with renewed ferocity, so did the tide of secrets churn. Poirot's instincts twisted with foreboding, the veils growing thin. They were set upon a path teetering precariously close to revelation or ruin. The next moment would unveil whether Haynes was indeed a crucial witness or the orchestrator of mischief meant to divert their pursuit. The stakes were higher than ever, with the truth ever so tantalizingly out of reach. Chapter 9. A Desperate Trap. The darkened sky roiled above Ashwood Manor, thunder echoing ominously as raindrops fell in chaotic bursts against the windows, blurring the landscape outside. Poirot stood at the manor's grand window, the flickering candlelight casting restless shadows across his thoughtful visage. His mind raced, consumed by the trails of evidence he had unfurled so far. Tonight's tempest mirrored the turmoil brewing within him. Time was slipping away, and the spectre of Lila lingered heavily, demanding resolution. As he turned away from the glass, a sense of urgency gripped him. "We must act tonight," Poirot declared, crossing the room with purpose. Eleanor and Barnaby exchanged glances, their expressions reflecting the gravity of the moment. "Conrad Haynes mentioned a ledger in the old tavern," Poirot continued, his voice steady yet urgent. "This ledger may reveal the debts, the silent betrayals that thread through our tangled history. We must lure our prime suspect, Mason, to disclose what he knows." "But how do we draw him in?" Barnaby questioned, skepticism lacing his tone. "Mason is clever. He has a way of slipping through inquiries like water through fingers." Poirot paused and fixed his gaze upon his companions, the corners of his mouth lifting in a calculated smile. "We shall bait the trap with the essence of intrigue he cannot resist. We will spread the word of Lila's legacy, weaving tales of haunting and desire. A mysterious letter, perhaps, suggesting a meeting that shadows the unspoken fears of the villagers." Eleanor's eyes lit up with understanding. "You mean to make him feel he is necessary to this narrative, crossing the line between obsession and salvation?" "Precisely, my dear," Poirot affirmed, "and once he arrives, we shall employ the precise method of observation, the keen art of deduction, to uncover the hidden truths he guards." The plan stitched itself together as the rainstorm fell heavier, each droplet punctuating electric tension in the air. Fueled by adrenaline, Poirot painstakingly crafted a letter that danced precariously between intrigue and temptation, casting an elusive web of compelling mystery that would surely pull Mason in. Hours later, in the dim intimacy of the tavern, renowned for its flickering light and whispers, the trio set their stage. Each shadowy corner seemed to breathe secrets, and the air felt thick with the anticipation of revelation. Poirot observed the barkeep, Mason, from a distance, his tall figure hunched over the bar, pouring drinks that swirled dangerously close to the line of intoxication. His layers, they are many, Poirot mused, his eyes narrowing as he reflected on Mason's demeanor. He is an actor in a play marred with lies and illusions. As rain drummed outside, Poirot signaled to Barnaby and Eleanor to position themselves strategically among the scattered tables, creating a natural divide for their impending encounter. The essence of rain mingled with the fragrance of rich beer, forming an intoxicating atmosphere charged with foreboding. At just the right moment, Poirot stood. He approached the bar, his characteristic poise sharpened by purpose. "Ah, Mason," he said with feigned nonchalance. "A pint for the weary traveller, yes? The storm does little to lessen the urgency of these inquiries, does it?" Mason turned slowly, his eyes flickering with interest until settling upon Poirot, calculating the weight of his presence. "Poirot," he acknowledged. "What inquiries do you have amid this tempest?" Poirot leaned casually against the bar, his voice low and conspiratorial. "Perhaps you would be inclined to share tales of our haunting village, its history, its legends. They speak of Layla, and I wonder, might you hold more secrets than the restless shadows here?" Mason's brow furrowed, a flickered nervousness crossing his features. "The village has many stories, Poirot. Leela was just another tale to weave into the fabric of memory." "Ah, but tales often conceal truths, do they not?" Poirot pressed, his eyes gleaming with the insight he had gleaned. "Perhaps in the telling, we discover what was meant to remain hidden." Mason hesitated, the tension palpable, but his thoughts seemed trapped in an intricate dance of self-preservation and lingering curiosity. "Well, why not?" he finally muttered, pouring another drink, perhaps hoping to drown out the unease Poirot's presence stirred within him. As the conversation unraveled, Poirot weaved intrigue through casual observations of Mason's reactions. Each response, layered with ambiguity, built a tapestry that would inevitably lead to the unveiling of his motives. Rain continued its rhythmic assault, underscoring the suspense wrapped tightly around them. "I have heard whispers of debts unfulfilled," Poirot offered, leaning forward, his voice scarcely above a whisper. "Perhaps you might reveal your role in the drama surrounding Sir Reginald." Mason laughed too, heartily, a false bravado echoing against the tavern walls. "Reginald's affairs are his own, Poirot. I've got nothing to share on his ledger." Lee's, Poirot knew, yet the tremor beneath Mason's bravado sparked an electric thrill in Poirot's mind. With a sudden shift, he leaned closer, his presence looming, a hawk upon its prey. But what of Lila? Would she not evoke more than a mere memory? A man who harbors secrets often finds himself tethered to them. A flash of genuine fear crossed Mason's features, brimming with unrevealed ambition. Lila was a ghost, a cautionary tale. Had she not vanished, perhaps others might have faced her wrath. In that moment, the door swung open, rain spraying a gust of wind into the tavern and heralding an unexpected visitor. A figure, cloaked in shadow, burst into the light, gasping, "I heard." Poirot's heart raced. Who was this newcomer, and what fragment of truth did they carry? The atmosphere crackled with anticipation, and as the figure stepped closer, their face illuminated by the firelight, Poirot felt the ground shift beneath him, the pieces of the puzzle threatening to lock into place. "Leela," the stranger breathed. Poirot's pulse quickened. This was the moment of reckoning. A desperate trap was set, but would it ensnare the truth or plunge them deeper into the labyrinth of lies? His mind raced as he prepared himself for the imminent storm, knowing their next steps might unveil the architect of deception, if only he could navigate the perils gathering about them. The clock ticked, and their game of shadows was far from over. Chapter 10. Unmasking the Deceiver. As the door to the tavern slammed shut behind the newcomer, the sound echoed ominously through the dimly lit room, a single candle flickering as if struggling against the sudden gust of wind. Poirot's eyes locked onto the figure, who now stood panting at the threshold, their features partially obscured by a hood, drawn tightly against the chill of the storm. The words Lila had escaped the stranger's lips like a haunting echo, resonating deeply within the turmoil of the tavern as rain continued its relentless assault against the windows. "Mason," Poirot commanded, his voice cutting sharply through the stunned silence, "we are in the presence of a revelation. Do you not see it?" He moved towards the newcomer, who slowly lowered their hood, revealing a pale, trembling face that matched the stormy skies above. "Is it true?" Eleanor breathed, her expression a mixture of disbelief and fascination. "Are you Lila?" The stranger's gaze darted nervously around the room before resting on Poirot, the flickering light catching the glimmer of fear in her eyes. "No," she whispered, "but I know what happened to her. I have come to warn you." Mason's smirk faded, replaced by a stony grimace, and Poirot noted the shift in his demeanor, a chink in the armor of defiance. "And pray, who are you?" He stepped forward, his presence commanding, yet poised. "Why should we trust a spectre that appears amidst a storm?" "Because," the woman said, her voice steadier, "now, I was her closest friend. My name is Clara Lynn." She took a deep breath, rallying her courage as she continued. "Leela and I were entwined in the secrets of Ashwood Manor, secrets that are buried deep, and I fear they are rising to the surface as we speak." At this, Poirot's mind shifted into overdrive, piecing together the fragments of knowledge that encircled him like the storm outside. "Secrets? Of what kind?" he pressed, narrowing his gaze, an investigator's instinct taking root. "The debts," Clara whispered, glancing nervously at Mason. "The debts entwined with dark dealings. Lila discovered things about Sir Reginald and Mason that they would wish to keep hidden." "Indeed," said Poirot, "it seems that dark motivations lurk beneath even the brightest surfaces, like the undulating waves beneath a deceptively calm lake." He glanced back at Mason, whose eyes darted toward the bar, revealing a flicker of guilt. "And I suspect you know a great deal about this, do you not, Mason?" Mason's facade began to crack, the bravado now absent from his voice as he challenged, "Enough of your theatrics, Poirot." "Clara is a witness," Poirot interrupted, turning his attention back to Clara. "Tell me more. What have you seen? What did Leela recognize that led to her unfortunate departure from this world?" "I can't," Clara stuttered, but Poirot's unwavering gaze urged her on. "Consider this, Miss Lynn. Is your loyalty to the truth, or to those who might wish to keep it buried?" Poirot's voice had softened, but held an underlying iron determination. Clara's resolve seemed to shatter under the weight of his words. Lila was caught in a web of lies and deceit. She glanced fearfully back at Mason before continuing. "She found records in the manor, debts that were not just financial, they were personal." "Personal?" Poirot inquired sharply, his mind racing. "With whom?" "Sir Reginald was mixed up in dubious affairs," Clara confessed. "Lila believed he was involved in Something far worse than mere gambling debts. She had planned to confront him, and that was the last time I saw her. The pit within Poirot's stomach tightened. Reginald, but would not a confrontation have taken place publicly? Why hide her disappearance? Because, Clara insisted, her voice rising, she feared too much. She feared you. She directed her gaze to Mason, and what you might do should she spill the truth. You were always lurking. You wanted her silence. Mason's expression hardened, the unshakable mask of confidence now replaced by a swirl of rage and helplessness. You do not know what you're talking about. This is nonsense, Clara. The storm outside intensified, rain splattering the windows like a chorus of anguish. Poirot assessed the faces around him. Barnaby, Eleanor, Clara, and Mason, each masking their own truths behind carefully curated facades. "Let us not forget your role here, Mason," Poirot accused, cutting through the tension. "You claim to merely serve the customers, yet I suspect your position is far more promoting, a keeper of secrets rather than just a bartender." Mason's jaw clenched, a flash of anger igniting behind his eyes. "What do you mean?" "Perhaps the Book of Ledgers," Poirot argued, gripping the edge of the bar. "It may contain more than mere debts. It could contain hidden truths. And I suspect it is not just threats you turned a blind eye to, but active complicity." A tense silence hung in the air as the rain began to subside, but the tempest inside the tavern erupted anew. "Enough," Mason spat. "You think you can forsake me? I have nothing to say." Clara stepped forward, her voice trembling, yet resolute. "No, Mason, you will not escape so easily. You aren't safe here, and neither are you, Poirot. The storm is not the only danger lurking tonight." Poirot, realizing the web was tightening, became attuned to the atmosphere surrounding them. "What do you mean?" he inquired. Before Clara could respond, the tavern door pushed open again with a violent groan, birthing a gust of wind that chilled the room anew. A figure stood in the doorway, drenched but unwavering, silhouetted against the faint light of the lanterns within. "I know why Lila disappeared," the new arrival declared, securing everyone's attention in a fierce grip of disbelief. "And it's connected to the debts that threatened to devour us all." Poirot's heart raced. The storm was not merely external. A storm raged in the depths of every soul present. "Who are you?" he asked, his voice steady, though adrenaline coursed through him. As the figure stepped fully into the tavern, the flickering firelight revealed the young man's features, and Poirot gasped at the truth that stood before him. It was a face from the past, a face partially consumed by shadows of blood ties and suspicion. "I'm Jonathan," he stated, "and I know who Lila was about to expose. It was the last thing she found before she vanished." As his chilling words echoed within the tavern, the real game began, and Poirot understood this was no mere convergence of secrets. It was an unmasking of deceit that would lead them all dangerously closer to the truth. Chapter 11. The Confession in Starlight. The midnight sky, shrouded in heavy clouds, mirrored the weight of unspoken secrets inside the dimly lit tavern. Rain had transformed into a soft drizzle, leaving a lingering chill in the air while the fire flickered sporadically, casting elongated shadows across the walls. Poirot stood solidly at the bar, his sharp eyes scanning the room, searching for the last piece of the puzzle while the tension wrapped around him like a vice. Jonathan's revelation had added a new layer to the unfolding drama, and it became clear that the hearts of the gathered were as stormy as the heavens above. "Jonathan," Poirot began, his tone demanding but calm. "You speak of Lila's intentions as if they were etched in stone. What had she unearthed?" The others around the bar watched him closely, every ear attuned, every eye gleaming with apprehension. Jonathan shifted uncomfortably under Poirot's gaze, his voice rising above the soft patter of raindrops against the window. "Before she vanished, Lila stumbled upon documents in Ashwood Manor. They were not just accounts. They were records of blackmail, secrets that implicated Sir Reginald and people beyond that manor's threshold. I don't know exactly what was included, but I felt her fear that she was being watched." "Watched," Poirot repeated, his mind racing. "Then it follows that Lila's fears were not unfounded. It was not a mere coincidence that she disappeared." His gaze shifted to Mason, who had moved to the far end of the bar, his posture tense, as if bracing against the heat of an unrelenting sun. "Tell me, Mason, how dire was her knowledge? What lengths would you go to protect these secrets?" Mason sneered, but it lacked conviction. "I protect no one, Poirot. I am simply a bartender. I don't dabble in the affairs of wealthy fools and their vanished wives." Yet as he spoke, the tremor in his voice betrayed him. Poirot noted the way his hands fidgeted with an unseen anxiety, the sweat beading at his temples despite the chill. "Ah, but are you not caught in the web of your own making?" Poirot pressed on. "You serve as a keeper of their chaos, a man loyal to the shadows surrounding Ashwood Manor. Are you certain you want to be seen as a mere bystander?" As if sensing a change lurking in the atmosphere, Clara stepped forward, her eyes glinting with an amalgamation of fear and determination. "Mason, it is time. We cannot hide any longer. I know your truth." Her voice edged with desperation, reverberating against the tavern's walls. Mason stiffened. "My truth? You dare—" "Enough," Jonathan interjected, emotion breaking through his initial composure. "You're not the only one who knows how deep this runs. Clara is right. I've been to Ashwood Manor, seen what lies in the dark corners. I overheard a conversation between Lila and Sir Reginald. He was chasing after something far uglier than debts. Perhaps an affair, something he needed to keep quiet." An abrupt silence fell over the tavern, every breath held in suspense. Poirot, invigorated by the new morsels of information, assimilated the clues rapidly, assembling the chaotic puzzle into a more coherent picture. "An affair, you say?" He shifted his attentions toward Jonathan. Is that what Lila had found? Was she prepared to confront Sir Reginald, or perhaps make the intended rumors public? Jonathan, emboldened by his own uncertainty, responded carefully. "I believe so. Lila spoke of leaving a trail, of exposing people's sins. But she feared for her life. She knew the risks." The fire crackled, cutting through the stillness, and Poirot brought his hand to his chin, his mind swirling with implications. "Clara, tell me, in your accusations toward Mason, what do you believe are the lengths he might go to in ensuring those secrets remain buried?" Clara tilted her head, her expression darkening. "I don't think he is alone in that desire. There's something even deeper at play here. Betrayal that extends beyond petty secrets, sinister alliances that threaten not just reputations, but lives." With her admission, the air thickened, pregnant with the unspoken acknowledgement of darker motivations creeping through the tavern's confines. Poirot considered the brewing storm of emotions that had turned this mundane bar into a cauldron of intrigue. Mason finally spoke, his voice gravelly and worn. "I did what I had to in order to survive. I was never going to hurt Lila, but I knew too much about Sir Reginald. I still do. His admission fell, heavy like a stone, stirring anger and concern amongst the group. Yet, if she were to expose him, it wouldn't just end with her. Poirot's brow furrowed, and he leaned forward, a sudden glaring realization igniting in his mind. And there it is, the true heart of the matter. He glanced between Mason and Clara, sparks of insight firing in his thoughts. What if Lila's disappearance wasn't merely the rumors of debts or scandal? What if it was about loyalty, deeper connections that kindle violence? What do you mean? Clara asked, her eyes wide and watching Poirot's every move like hawks circling their prey. Consider the matter carefully, Poirot urged, softening his tone, drawing them back into the fold of the investigation. Jonathan, your motivations. You've remained silent for so long. Why? You were Lila's protector in your own way. Do you think your past ties to Sir Reginald's affairs do not make you a suspect? The revelation hung between them, heavy in the air and crackling like the last embers of a dying fire. Jonathan opened his mouth to respond, but fell silent, absorbing the implications of Poirot's words. Then, before he could gather his thoughts, the tavern door burst open once more, and an icy breeze swept through the room, chilling everyone to their bones. A figure cloaked in darkness appeared, heart racing with urgency, a moment breathing life into the tension. The newcomer's eyes locked onto Poirot. I have what you need to complete the truth. Poirot's heart raced. This was a crucial moment. What do you mean? He demanded, anticipation driving him forward. The figure stepped into the candlelight, revealing a hand trembling with an envelope clenched tightly, a singular yet powerful hint of danger in the night. It's all here. The letters, the documents, everything Lila discovered before she disappeared. But it also contains... Their voice faltered, desperation creeping in. It contains the name of the murderer. Then, with a sudden and breath-stealing realization, Poirot understood. This confession would not only shock them, but would twist the threads of deceit even tighter around every heart present. Emotions hung in the air, tighter than ever, as Poirot readied himself to unravel the final layer of secrets buried beneath the cover of darkness. What have you uncovered? He whispered, knowing full well that the answer provided before them would ignite the storm into full ferocity, raining the truths onto the aching souls who had long danced around their shadows of guilt and layered intentions. The truth was about to emerge, and soon nothing would remain the same. Chapter 12. Justice in Disguise. The tension within the tavern crackled like the storm outside, the wind shrieking through the eaves and rattling the windows, as if nature itself wished to unveil the hidden sins of men. Poirot's heart raced. The newcomer's ominous declaration still lingered in the air, a potent cue that the truth lay just around the corner, poised to crash into their lives like the tempest outside. He fixed his keen gaze upon the figure, studying every contour of their anxious demeanor, aware that the night's resolution hinged upon this moment. "Show us what you have," Poirot urged, his voice slicing through the din of raindrops against the roof. The cloaked figure, revealing themselves as Annie, a subtle character whose presence often went unnoticed, took a tentative step forward, trembling slightly. "It contains everything Lila discovered, but also the name of the murderer," she repeated, her voice breaking slightly as she extended the envelope forward. The room, suffocatingly charged with anticipation, drew closer, eyes piercing through the shadows, each person lost in their thoughts and suspicions. Poirot's mind raced. Letters, documents, Revelations and motives danced in his head like phantoms refusing to be exorcised. As she handed the envelope to Poirot, he felt the weight of unspoken consequences bearing down upon him. He opened it with meticulous care, revealing neatly folded sheets adorned with writing. A delicate scrawl pervaded with urgency. The firelight flickered vividly upon the parchment, illuminating phrases that screamed the truth of a world cloaked in ties and shadows. Lila had mentioned something about a ledger, Jonathan said, stepping closer, his eyes wide with trepidation. If these are the same documents she entrusted, they reveal more than blackmail. They unravel lives. Precisely, Poirot observed, his voice low yet commanding as he scrutinized the first page. "Dearest Lord Ashwood," he read, extracting words that slipped through his fingers. "Serious transgressions against the trust of local patrons. Affairs that lead to ruin. Indeed, it seems Lila was on the verge of exposing layers of deception entrenched within Ashwood Manor." Clara shivered as if a gust of icy wind had run through her. "What were the names?" she implored, leaning forward with hope and dread mingling in her eyes. Poirot flipped through the documents, his mind swirling with the possibilities. "Ah, here it is. A list of those entwined in this darkness. It speaks of long-standing debts, hidden affairs, and most alarmingly—" He paused, allowing an electric silence to envelop the room as he scanned the final lines. Names. Names of powerful individuals whose reputations were at stake. His brow furrowed. "And—" He glanced up, locking eyes with Mason. "The name appears here. Mason. You too are listed, though not purely as a perpetrator. You were, perhaps, a facilitator." Mason bristled defensively, his bravado stripped bare. "I have no idea what you're talking about. Those names, perhaps coincidental entries, meaningless. I don't get involved in their business." "Perhaps if the stakes were lower," Poirot declared sternly, directing both clarity and accusation toward Mason's shifty eyes. "But consider this. Lila uncovered something that threatened the very existence of your so-called neutrality. What if she had planned to expose not just debts, but a web of lies that connected you to severe threats?" "Why me?" Mason retorted, desperation mingling with anger. "I don't even know most of them." "Yet, it was your tavern they frequented," Poirot continued, his voice rising with undeniable certainty. "You stood as a keeper of secrets, and this—" Poirot gestured to the envelope. "This could hold your peril." An uneasy silence fell over the room, absorbed by their unveiled pasts like a mirage fading in dawn. But Poirot, astute as always, was not easily swayed. From a fleeting expression on Jonathan's face, a calculating uncertainty, he sensed an undisclosed layer of truth waiting to be revealed. "You, Jonathan," Poirot turned with deliberate focus. "What connections do you hold with Lila? You spoke of being her protector." His voice dipped, slicing through Jonathan's earlier composure. "Dare I suggest there is still something buried beneath your hasty words, something you have kept in silent resignation?" Jonathan hesitated, a storm of emotions flashing through his gaze. "Lila was my friend," he stated firmly, yet his voice quavered slightly. "She confided in me about the dangers, how people were watching her. I had tried to warn her not to delve too deep." "Yet you were complicit," Poirot challenged, piercing through Jonathan's defenses. "Your silence, your inaction. As a friend, did you not have a duty to protect her?" His facade began to crack. I was afraid," Jonathan murmured, "afraid of what I might unearth. Sometimes I wish I had stopped her, he faltered. But I was entangled. My family. Ah, Poirot interrupted, an epiphany igniting within him. There lies the crux. This web is not one of simple debts and affairs, no. It's a tapestry of entangled lives, threatened by brutal realities. There was fear, definitely, but beyond that, there was potential for malicious loyalty, binding you to those who would commit. But before he could complete his thought, the door slammed open, a fresh roar of wind sweeping through as Sir Reginald himself strode through the threshold, soaked and agitated. "You meddling fools," he bellowed, voice echoing across the silent bar. "You dare to speak ill of matters beyond your understanding. You are treading on thin ice." Poirot's eyes sharpened, observing the wild flicker of Sir Reginald's eyes and surveying the chaotic energy encircling him. "Reginald, what brings you here in such a disordered state?" he queried smoothly, absorbing the turmoil radiating around them. "I know about the documents," Reginald spat, his composure fraying at the edges. "You think you can expose me. You know nothing of the danger you're in." "Perhaps not, but we might soon unravel everything," Poirot pronounced calmly, his unwavering gaze challenging the man who stood before him. In an act of desperation, Reginald reached out, grabbing for the envelope that still lay clutched in Poirot's fingers. "That's mine. You don't know what you're meddling with." Poirot stepped back, firmly keeping the evidence safe as he scrutinized Reginald with unyielding attention. "It is time for justice, my friend, though it may take a disguise to deliver it. What skeletons do you hold close that could grant you motive beyond the reach of normal men?" In Reginald's eyes, Poirot saw the flicker of secrets unraveling, the glint of careful calculation illuminated against the darkening tableau of the tavern. Just as he opened his mouth to retort, the fire suddenly flared, casting long, ominous shadows, the final act fueling the storm brewing in the hearts of men. As the truth swirled dangerously close, Poirot knew he teetered on the precipice of revelation. What had started as a storm over the Riviera line was now an impending tempest revealing the hidden culprits. He felt it, the weight of destiny overwhelming them, all leading to one crucial conclusion. And in that moment, amidst the darkest alleys of loyalty and betrayal, Poirot took a step forward, grasping the envelope firmly, his mind locked in on the final clue he could rip from the shadows as one undeniable truth shimmered on the cusp of clarity. Justice would emerge, but only if he could unravel the last strand of deception lurking at their very midst. With anticipation gripping him like a fever, Poirot concluded, "Now, my dear companions, it is time for revelations." The room held its breath, awaiting the echoes that would change everything.